Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series Rescue the Rockies. And the 2043 playoffs begin today. Our Rockies with a nice bounce back season this year, second best record in baseball at 103-59, and we will have home field advantage for as long as we're alive through the National League playoffs. And in the World Series, we'll have home field advantage against anyone except potentially the Las Vegas Athletics if we're fortunate enough to get there. Taking a quick look at the playoff tree for 2043, the A's, as we noted, have the best record in baseball. They'll be facing the winner of a series between the Royals and the Guardians, and the Red Sox will have home field advantage against either the Mariners or the Astros. Over in our National League, the Cubs with one of the byes, they'll be facing off against the Mets or the Pirates. And our Colorado Rockies with a first-round bye and the number one seed in the National League will be facing off against the San Diego Padres, the team that we've been battling with for the division for the past several seasons, or our former division rival, the Arizona Diamondbacks, who won the National League South after we expanded to 32 teams and changed the division setup several seasons ago. Hoping for a good performance from the Rockies in these playoffs. We're literally days away from the release of OOTP 27. Really excited to jump into the new game, but we still have work to do here with the Rockies in OOTP 26 and would love to get another title in the later innings of this playthrough. And as we move to the divisional round of the playoffs, the Guardians will be facing off against the A's, the Mariners against the Red Sox, the Mets against the Cubs, and a familiar foe for our Rockies, our divisional rival San Diego Padres, took out the Diamondbacks in 3 games. So we are getting ready for game number 1, our longtime ace, 12-time All-Star, 3-time Cy Young Award winner Leo Martinez on the mound. Martinez was 14-7 with a 3.24 ERA this year. Didn't lead the league in innings pitched for the first time in several seasons. You can see he pretty consistently loses 7 games a year. Strikes out 170, 180, 190 batters, has an ERA in the low 3s, and puts up a WAR of just over 5. Mr. Consistency, perhaps should be his nickname. He has had an outstanding career with us and look forward to seeing what he can do on the mound against the Padres, who will be pitching the 29-year-old right-hander Rich Gutierrez, 12-6 with a 3.93 ERA this year, 2.1 WAR. It's his birthday today. Hopefully it will be an unhappy birthday for Gutierrez and the San Diego Padres. But they get the victory and he gets a win on his birthday. Martinez takes the loss. Muntasir Rakin with the save in relief. We did get a home run from our rental, Antonio Vaca, but not a lot of offense otherwise. 3 home runs allowed by our pitching staff, and they scored 2 runs in the second, 2 runs in the third. We came back and tied it with a 4-run fourth, but they added 2 more in the fourth to take the lead for good on their way to a 7-4 victory. Vaca with a home run, as we talked about, and 3 ribbies. Kevin Roberts Jr. also drove in a run. Rough outing for Martinez, 5 hits, 1 walk, and 6 earned runs. He allowed all 3 of the home runs over just 3 innings pitched. The youngster Tomas Pena gave us 3 innings of 1-run relief, and then Melvin Reyes and Ryan Harville combined for a perfect 7th, 8th, and 9th innings, striking out 5. But obviously the Padres had already done enough damage at that point. Gutierrez gets the win. Not a quality start, allowing 4 earned runs over 6 innings, but it was more than enough to have the Padres seize home field advantage from our Rockies. So game number 2 now, critical to get a victory for our Colorado Rockies. San Diego will be putting on the 30-year-old Joe Priest, only 2-2 with a 4.94 ERA in 23 2/3 innings. Pitched only 10 games this year. He's wrecked physically. My assumption is there is a major injury that was involved in the fact that we haven't seen much of him this year. And he did miss 4 months with a torn rotator cuff, but he seems back from that now, although he did have a rotator cuff strain that impacted him in September. On the mound for our Rockies, if Leo Martinez is still our 1, Jesse Hoffmeister is certainly 1A, the potential free agent, possibly going to be headed to free agency as a Cy Young Award winner, even though he's never been an all-star. Did win a world championship with us in 2040, the last time we raised the World Series trophy. 15-3 record with a league best 255 strikeouts, leading the league in Ks for the second straight year. A league best 2.21 ERA. League best 12.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Put up a brilliant 1.85 Sierra. Interestingly, his 5.6 WAR is exactly what he did a year ago, even though his ERA is a run less. His WHIP is exactly the same, and BABIP also pretty similar as well. His Sierra, both seasons, has been outstanding. He's got ridiculous stuff. Does give up a few home runs, but certainly feel like the matchup favors us today. We were 10-2 against the Padres in the regular season this year. We've got the best offense and the best pitching staff in the National League. Their offense also very good. Their pitching staff more middle of the pack. And we do get a 3-0 victory. Hoffmeister with the win, Priest with the loss, Schweitzer with the save. Scored a run in the second on an RBI single by John Jefferson. And in the bottom of the 5th, a 2-run double by Carlos Barrel Davila. Hoffmeister, 2 hits, 4 walks, and 4 strikeouts over 5 1/3 innings. Reyes, McKinney, and Schweitzer combined to allow just 2 hits and a walk over the final 3 2/3 innings. Priest was certainly respectable. 3 earned runs, 7 batters, over 5 1/3 innings pitched while striking out 4. But when we hold the team to 4 hits and no runs, it's going to be pretty hard to beat our Rockies. So as we head to San Diego, the Padres have seized home field advantage from us. They will have the 29-year-old right-hander Eddie Rayner on the mound, 11-13 with a 4.54 ERA this year, 2.4 WAR on the season. Good, solid major league pitcher, really good stamina and outstanding at holding on runners. We've got the veteran left-hander Bob Russell, bounced back from a major injury that cost him all of last season with a 13-8 record, 3.40 ERA, and a 4.3 WAR. So a pretty typical Bob Russell season on the other side of that injury, which is nice to see. We'll see if we can seize the initiative back tomorrow in San Diego. And as the game file gets larger and larger, and my computer gets older and older, it takes longer and longer to move to the next day, as you can see, which is why I tend to not include myself moving from day to day in these videos. The Padres have changed things up, it looks like. Chris Priest, 9-8 with a 3.33 ERA and a WAR of close to 5, going to be on the mound. So certainly a much better pitcher on the mound today for San Diego with the day off. So that should work in their favor. Clearly we're going to have to win one of these next 2 games to get things back to Colorado, though. And unfortunately, today was not the day to win. Russell takes the loss. Ali Kerr with the win in relief, and Rakin with his second save of the series. Padres took an early lead with 2 runs in the bottom of the third. We came back in the top of the fifth. Kuhn and Roberts both drew walks with the bases loaded off of Kerr to tie things up, but an RBI double by Morgan in the bottom of the fifth, and then an insurance run in the bottom of the eighth for the Padres as they push us a game away from potential elimination. Got a quality start from Russell, although he did scatter 9 hits and a walk over 6 innings pitched. McKinney allowed a run over the final 2 innings of the game. Priest was not great. 4 hits, 3 walks, 2 earned runs over 4 2/3, but he got the job done. Kerr with the win in relief, despite those 2 walks, which put batters that Priest had allowed on base across the home plate to score those first 2 runs for us. See if we can salvage the season and salvage a series. Had pretty good expectations for this team heading into these playoffs. Eddie Rayner, who we talked about earlier, the right-hander on the mound for the Padres today. We've got the outstanding rookie, 25-year-old Ray Salas, 13-1 with a 3.26 ERA, struck out 184 batters in 149 innings, put up a 3.6 WAR for us, 138 ERA plus, 75 FIP minus. He was outstanding and certainly looking like he's going to be a very important part of our rotation going forward. And hopefully we'll get another opportunity to see him start a game this season, but we're going to need a win today for that to be possible. And unfortunately, it looks like we got a good game out of Salas, but a 1-0 loss. And the Padres, who went 2-10 against our Rockies in the regular season, go 3-1 against our rested and relatively healthy roster here in the divisional series, and a somewhat bitter early exit for our Colorado Rockies. The 1 run came in the bottom of the 7th. Baratella with a solo home run out of Salas. Only 4 hits apiece for the 2 teams today. We got our hits from Castro, Kuhn, Roberts Jr., and McNeil. Not a lot of offense, obviously, for our Rockies in this series. Berrueta was the one with the big blow. He hit just 143 in these playoffs so far, but that solo home run made the difference today. Salas was outstanding. 3 hits, 2 walks, 1 earned run, and 10 strikeouts over 6 2/3. But that home run ended up costing him. McKinney, who could be leaving now that the season is over, allowed a hit while striking out 1 over the final inning and a third. Rayner did a really nice job. 4 hits, no earned runs over 6 1/3 innings, and then 3 relievers combined to keep our Rockies hitless over the final 2 2/3 innings as the San Diego Padres move on to the National League Championship Series. And a troubling trend continues. Last year, you may remember, our Rockies were the only team with a first-round bye that didn't advance to the LCS. This year, we failed to advance with a first-round bye again. The Cubs also did get knocked off by the Mets, but both of the AL teams with first-round byes, the A's and the Red Sox, got wins in their series and will be facing off against each other in the NLCS. Padres and the Mets in the National League Championship Series here in 2043. As we noted when we were talking through the playoff series, outstanding statistical performance by our Rockies this year. First in the National League in runs scored, first, second, or third in all of the primary offensive categories, led the league in steals, second in base running, the best team in the National League in defensive efficiency and zone rating, first in runs allowed, and first in every pitching category except for walks, where we were tied for second. Our 103-59 record was 8 below Pythagorean expectations, so even though it ended up being a bit of a transition year for the Rockies where we moved away from a few veterans, didn't do much in free agency or the trade market in the offseason, and went with a bit of a youth movement. It was a pretty successful season for us, at least during the regular season. Certainly another disappointing flame out in the playoffs for the Rockies, though. With our season over, we'll turn our attention to our annual roster review for the remainder of this episode. We already talked about Martinez. He will be back with us next year. Certainly will be exercising that team option for $7 million for him. Stuff not what it used to be, but he still does a pretty good job keeping the ball down and in the park and continues to have outstanding control. His home runs allowed have dropped each of the past 3 seasons. Jesse Hoffmeister is going to be our huge decision for this offseason. Had a monster year. Think he has a very legitimate chance of earning a Cy Young Award at the age of 30 and being in that somewhat selective clubs of players who have won a Cy Young Award without actually being named an All-Star over the course of their career, which in the course of Hoffmeister, who led the league in wins 2 years ago, and as we noted, has led the league in strikeouts each of the last couple years, is a bit surprising. Hoffmeister going to be, as I noted, a huge decision for us, looking for a little over $40 million a year for 7 years. Fragile in terms of his injury proneness. He's never had a significant injury issue since he came up in the majors in his mid-20s, pitched 32 or 31 games, all starts each of the last 4 years, moved into the rotation back in 2039. Could argue we've gotten the healthiest and, given his age, likely the best years of Hoffmeister's career, and maybe we move on from him this offseason, particularly because those extreme fly ball tendencies don't play incredibly well in Coors. He's given up over 20 home runs a year each of the last 3 years. But we'll still leave a huge hole in our rotation if finances suggest that we have to move on from him. Bob Russell, another decision for us. He's older than Hoffmeister, also fragile, coming off of a good year. We've got a team option for $18 million for Hoffmeister for next season. Certainly still a high-quality major league pitcher. Put up a 4.3 WAR after that injury cost him all of 2042, so it looks like it really didn't have a huge impact on his career. Could move on from both of them, could move on from neither of them. Big decisions for the offseason as far as our rotation. Fortunately, as I noted, the 25-year-old Salas probably going to be a pretty strong contender for National League Rookie of the Year after putting up that 13-1 record and 3.6 WAR while striking out close to 200 batters despite pitching less than 150 innings. And another rookie pitcher, Makoto Hirota, 9-5 record with a 3.48 ERA. Salas and Hirota both moved into the rotation before the midway point of the season. Hirota not nearly as spectacular with a 1.1 WAR, but still with the way his ratings and his ceiling look, think he could be a very useful pitcher for us for years to come. At 25 years old now, do start being a little concerned that some of this untapped potential will never be realized with Mr. Hirota. Tomas Pena spent most of the year in the minors for us in AAA. He was 5-8 with a 5.10 ERA and 21 starts at Albuquerque, but a 1.41 ERA, striking out 32 batters in 32 innings in the majors. Didn't allow a single home run, despite the fact that he is a fly ball pitcher and, at least according to our scout, is not great at keeping the ball in the park. He could certainly be another player who could have a much more prominent spot in our rotation next year, particularly if we move on from Hoffmeister and or Russell. Eric Schweitzer, the closer, 75 strikeouts in 62 innings pitched, 30 shutdowns to 11 meltdowns, ended up with 40 saves, a 1.3 WAR. set to make a little less than $5 million in arbitration with some other pitchers that will likely be moving on from. Schweitzer will definitely be back. Jason McKinney has been outstanding since we picked him up in a trade with the Giants almost 6 years ago. Led the National League with 26 holds this year, 11-8 record with 7 saves. He's won double-digit games working out of the bullpen the last couple years. 2.66 ERA over 105 innings pitched, put up a 2.7 WAR. Really good stamina. He has been an outstanding left-handed, high-volume reliever for us the past several seasons. He is now ready to hit free agency, though, looking for $26 million a year over 5 years. Think it's going to be pretty hard for us to bring the 30-year-old back at that level, even though he is durable and incredibly effective thus far in his career. Left-hander Roberto Ramirez, 2.51 ERA over 46 2/3 innings, put up a 1 WAR, typical good strong season from the lefty. Fortunately for us, Ramirez is a guy that we were able to sign to an extension. Certainly not as good as McKinney, but he will give us, for $7 million a year for the next several years, a good, solid left-handed arm out of the back of our bullpen, which we could need, because Melvin Reyes, similar to McKinney, Hoffmeister, and Russell, is a guy who could be departing. The 30-year-old, an international free agent signing over a decade ago, is durable and very effective. 1.59 ERA this year over 56 2/3 innings. Put up a 1.3 WAR for us. Good in the clubhouse. Throws 100 miles an hour. Above average at just about everything, including that outstanding fastball. But Luisito Reyes also potentially headed to free agency. He's looking for a little less than $20 million a year for 4 years. So we have some very expensive pitchers hitting the market. Right-hander Josh Joss, former second-round pick, also signed to an extension by us in the early stages of his career, a 10-year deal that's worked out well for us. We've got team options for the next couple seasons. He is not as good as most of the pitchers we talked about that we could be losing, but he is a lot cheaper and still under team control. An ERA of close to 5 over 41 2/3 innings, but he had a 1.2 WAR. His FIP minus of 52 was outstanding. BABIP against him this year was 387. Have to think he just got somewhat unlucky, or arguably very unlucky with a number like that. Think he's a good candidate to bounce back next year, and certainly anticipate that we will have Joss alongside Schweitzer and Ramirez in the bullpen next year. So although the back end of our bullpen may not be as stacked as it has been with the injury to Chris Kennedy that was suffered several weeks ago at this point, and the potential losses of McKinney and Reyes, most teams would be pretty pleased to have a Schweitzer or Ramirez, a Josh Joss, and the youngster Ryan Harville in the mix in their bullpen. The former 7th rounder spent the entire year in the majors with us, a outstanding 1.41 ERA over 44 2/3 innings pitched. Unlike Joss, Harville got very lucky in terms of how people hit against him. Allowed a ridiculous 139 batting average and a 221 BABIP. Still put up a 1 WAR for us. Has brilliant stuff. The movement and control are more average, but after a pretty shaky introduction to the majors in small sample sizes in 2041 and 2042, definitely proved that he belonged this year. And even if we make some significant changes, the feeling is with Schweitzer, Ramirez, Joss, and Harville, we've got 4 very good relievers who will definitely be with us next year. And then with Martinez, Salas, Hirota, and Pena, we definitely have 4 guys who we think can be more than acceptable to very good major league starters. Obviously, the questions are Hoffmeister and Russell, do we bring either of them back? And then McKinney and Reyes, do we bring either of them back? And in 2043, we're going to have a rematch of that classic 1986 World Series between the Boston Red Sox and the New York Mets. The Mets took out the Padres in 6 games. The Red Sox did them one better, taking out the best team in baseball, the Las Vegas A's, in 5 games in the American League Championship Series. With another series in the books, or actually 2 series in the books, both of the League Championship Series, we'll take a look now at our position players with the big changes that we are certainly going to have coming to our pitching staff next year, just a matter of how we make those decisions. Positively, I think there's going to be a bit less turnover or potential turnover among our position players. One position, unfortunately, where we can't say that, though, is catcher, where we've really been struggling to fill the spot consistently for the last several years. Alex Arellano, who we picked up in a trade 1.5 years ago with Salt Lake City, actually did a pretty good job for us as a medium-term rental this year. .261 average with 14 homers and 61 ribbies and 376 at-bats. He was our starting catcher against right-handed pitching. Put up a 111 WRC plus and a 3.1 WAR. Like him in the clubhouse, like his blocking and framing, even though his arm is bad. Still, as we saw this year, a useful hitter against right-handed pitching. He's looking for 6 years at about $12 million a year. At 31 years old, I don't know if we want to pay him that type of money and commit to him for that number of years, but it's not inconceivable that he might be the best option out there for us. With the injury to Elliott Bedford, Adrian McCallum came up and took over as our backup against left-handed pitching for much of the year. .246 average with a couple of dingers and 15 ribbies in 122 at-bats. 77 WRC plus, half a win above replacement. Respectable defensive catcher who is not horrible offensively is about all we can say about him. He is a guy who's still making the major league minimum, has option years left, would certainly expect him to be part of our organization next year. The question is whether it will be as a backup catcher, a starting catcher in the majors, or a catcher for us in AAA. Moving to our infielders, Ted Slade is a guy who has been our right-handed hitting first baseman / DH, starting primarily against left-handed pitching for the last several seasons, and he is perhaps the most consistent player in baseball history. Exactly 12 home runs each of the past 4 years, 28 to 33 ribbies each of the last 4 years, batting averages from .247 to .269, OPS is from 791 to 854, and either 0.4, 0.5, or 0.6 wins above replacement each of these years. Has certainly settled into a very useful offensive player for us, but given that he doesn't bring much to the table defensively, and he's set to be making about $4 million in arbitration next year, it's possible that we move on from him, since playing him against left-handed pitching is the primary role he's had for us. Antonio Vaca was a rental in a trade that we made with the Cubs a couple weeks before the trade deadline. Doesn't have the greatest personality in the world, not the best defensive player in the world, and we thought we were making a good move getting the rapidly declining and expensive Johnny Castillo off the books as the primary asset we gave up to bring Vaca on board. And he did a fantastic job for us as a rental. 280 average with 13 homers and 42 ribbies and 246 at-bats. Put up a 135 WRC plus, win and a half above replacement for us. However, he will be heading to free agency, looking for over $40 million a year for 4 years. As good as he is offensively, given his age, his fragility, his defensive limitations, and his less than perfect personality, We thank Vaca for the really good job he did for us as a rental this year, but we'll certainly not be looking to keep him this offseason. Checking in on what Johnny Castillo did, he was more effective with the Cubs than he was with us. 277 average with 14 homers and 34 ribbies and 249 at-bats. So while he was about 20+% below average offensive player with us, more than 20% better above average with his time with the Cubs. Put up a 2.4 WAR on the season. Still feel like with the way his ratings have regressed, he's basically a one-dimensional slugger who is a good defensive player. But if that power continues to weaken, Castillo could become a problematic contract. Still has 4 years left at $16 to $20 million a year that the Cubs are now responsible for. Our hope is that some of the youngsters that have come up through our organization will be able to fill the holes caused by moving away from Castillo, likely moving on from Vaca, and possibly moving on from Slade. One of the guys we'll be reliant on is the infielder Alex Gamez. Fragile physically, has consistently had some injury issues. 239 average with 6 homers, 37 ribbies this year. Did steal 15 bases, 89 WRC plus, 1.3 WAR. Over the 3 parts of 3 seasons he's been in the majors with us, has generally been close to a league average offensive player, a win and a half above replacement. Useful player for us. Still feel like he's got some potential, but similar theme to others we've talked about. At 26 years old, not sure how much of that potential will actually be realized. Still not arbitration eligible with the timing that he's been in the majors, so he'll be making the major league minimum next year. He will almost certainly be back on the roster. Former second-round pick Mario Manriquez, similar. 25 years old. We think he's got a lot of untapped potential, but at some point when people start getting into their mid-20s, the chances of realizing all of that untapped potential gets lower and lower. Can say some good things about him, and you can say some bad things about him. The positive things: did have 42 extra base hits and 492 at-bats. Stole 8 bases in 9 attempts, and he did walk 59 times this year, but the batting average was just 228. The OPS was below 700, struck out in about a quarter of his at-bats. Ultimately was a below-average offensive player, basically a replacement-level player overall. Former second-rounder, will be making the major league minimum next year. He's a versatile infielder, although not a particularly good infielder defensively. Given his left-handed bat, would have to think he'll be in the mix to be on the roster next year. In a perfect world, I don't think it's going to be as somebody starting 143 games for us, though. Third baseman Luis Escobar, who was picked in the first round the year we picked Manriquez in the second round. Spent the entire year on the major league team, 220 batting average, 10 homers and 48 ribbies and 323 at-bats. Similar to Manriquez, OPS plus and WRC plus in the 80s. He was half a win above replacement level, 15 stolen bases and 17 attempts. Similar to Manriquez, a versatile player who can play a number of positions in both the infield and the outfield. But he's fragile physically, 26 years old. Looking at his ratings, he kind of is what he is at this point. Another guy with option years left who is making the major league minimum. So would think that the likes of Gamez, Manriquez, Luis Escobar, and John Jefferson will all be competing for spots on the roster next year. Jefferson, the issue with him has become just staying healthy. Only 97 major league at-bats this year. He did hit 340 in those 97 major league at-bats with 6 homers and 15 ribbies. Put up a 160 WRC plus and a WAR of close to 1. So very productive when he was healthy. 26-year-old, looks like he's a useful major league bat. and another guy with a versatile, albeit not spectacular, major league glove. Arbitration eligible for the first time, set to make about $2.5 million. So tend to think that just based on their versatility and their costs, that Gamez, Manriquez, Escobar, and John Jefferson will all be back as parts of our infield next year. One guy who certainly will be with a guy who had an off year this season, Carlos Bear Barrel Davila, IAFA signing from 2034, who's developed very well for us. Great speed, an outstanding defensive shortstop, popular in the clubhouse, a lot of positive personality traits, although he is going to want to get paid down the line, which has made it hard for us to consider extending him. Arbitration eligible, set to make about $12 million next year. Given his outstanding defense, his great speed, and a bat that we think can be a plus bat, we'll happily pay that. To be fair, though, had some injury issues this year, and the bat really regressed, at least in terms of its performance from what we saw a year ago. 222 average with 11 homers and 41 ribbies. Did get more efficient on the base paths this year, at least, but his doubles were more than cut in half, and his home runs almost cut in half from a year ago. Was below average offensively, but still put up a WAR of close to 3, which admittedly was far off the 7.6 WAR he put up last year when he was a very serious MVP contender. Looking at his ratings, think he probably got unlucky. He may not be as good as he was offensively in 2042, but he's almost certainly better than he was in 2043. Think the true nature of his offense is somewhat between what he did these last couple years. You look at his BABIP, and it dipped 73 points from 333 a year ago to 260 this year. That 293 number that he put up a couple years ago when he was pretty close to a league average offensive player, maybe more the run rate that we'd expect from Davila going forward. But he'll certainly be back as our shortstop. And with Gamez, Manriquez, Escobar, and Jefferson, we do have 3 right-handed hitters and a left-handed hitter to mix and match at some of the other potential infield positions. Still have a decision on Slade, as I noted. Vaca almost certainly will not be back. And last but not least, we will take a look at our outfielders. Left fielder Chris Kuhn, picked him up in a trade with Washington a couple of years ago. Another really nice season for us. Very consistent player from year to year. 272 average this year, 25 homers, 104 ribbies. Stole 33 bases for us, so much more effective on the base paths this year than a year ago. Put up a OPS over 800 for the second straight year, 115 WRC plus, a WAR right in the 2.5 range for us where he was a year ago. Useful DH/left field type who plays for us primarily against right-handed pitching. Kuhn set to make close to $12 million in arbitration next year. Tend to think we'll probably bring him back because, as I said, he's a pretty productive offensive player against right-handed pitching, given his defensive mediocrity and the fact that he's an outfielder, kind of unplayable against left-handed pitching, although if you have to have him in the lineup in a pinch, there are probably worse options on some teams. 24-year-old Tom McNeil, former 4th-round pick, had a really nice year for us, left-handed hitter. 282 average with 34 doubles, league-leading 7 triples, and 21 homers in 490 at-bats. Scored 91 runs, drove in 80, ultimately put up a 130 WRC plus and a 3.7 WAR. He'll be in the mix to be a left fielder for us next year. Could also play right or center if injuries to Kevin Roberts Jr. or Mike Castro make that a necessity. Fragile as far as his injury proneness, which isn't optimal for a 24-year-old. He'll be making the major league minimum next year. Playable, certainly, against both right-handed and left-handed pitching. And with the likely departure this upcoming season of the third left-handed hitter of the outfield, Eric Mokeen, McNeil probably is going to get an opportunity to be a almost everyday starter for us next year. Mokeen, similar to Kuhn, is arbitration eligible, set to make $9 million next year. We love that he's an Iron Man, love that spark plug personality, decent speed, decent fielder. The issue is the bat is regressing a bit. 259 average this year with 14 homers and 57 ribbies, was basically a league average offensive player, which is kind of where he's settled in. 2.5 WAR player, but is a 30-year-old who is okay against right-handed pitching, not that good against left-handed pitching, and set to be making about $9 million. It is possible that we decide to move on from Smo S. If we felt like he was a reasonable choice to become a first baseman, that would be an interesting option for him. But with that 25 range and 20 error rating in the infield, kind of really forced into a left field, a right field, or a DH spot. It's possible Mokeen is back, but he is definitely... McNeil making the major league minimum at the age of 24 is certainly our top option among the left-handed hitting outfielders. And although Kuhn is older and a bit more expensive than Mokeen in arbitration next year, his ratings against right-handed pitching and his performance more recently make us much more comfortable keeping him around. So Mokeen is the potential decision among the outfielders because the rest of the crew will certainly be back. 31-year-old Mike Castro, former first-round pick out of southeastern Louisiana, has a case to be the National League MVP this year. Hit 300, scored 101 runs, 39 doubles, 5 triples, 20 homers, drove in 79, walked 88 times, led the league with 53 stolen bases, OPS of close to 900. 143 WRC plus and a 8.2 WAR, which led the National League. His 343 BABIP indicates it was probably a very lucky season. But with the fact that we were without Kevin Roberts Jr. for most of the year, Castro really stepped up. He is in the final year of his potential run with us, got a team option for $8 million for next season that we will certainly exercise. And then that brings us to Kevin Roberts Jr., 5 tools, whose ratings at the age of 35 are starting to deteriorate, now fragile in terms of his injury proneness. Missed most of this season due to injury. Hit 254 with 7 homers and 39 ribbies and 240 at-bats. Did steal 27 bases over the small amount of time he was able to play with us. 746 OPS and 100 WRC plus are not what we've become accustomed to from Roberts Jr. Hoping that with a full season next year, he'll be a bit more productive offensively. Put up a 1.6 WAR. Captain personality, team leader, still a very good defensive outfielder, still his outstanding speed, and still his plus home run power and an excellent eye, but the contact and the gap power are both average at this point. Would expect, given his age, some regression to continue. He's in the first year of the 6-year deal that we gave him to ensure that the likely future Hall of Famer was able to spend his entire career with the Rockies. We knew that that contract could get rough for us in the future. Fortunately, it's a bit front-loaded. He'll be making $38 million next year, and certainly hope that we can perhaps get a 4 to 5 WAR season out of Roberts Jr. next year, have him in the lineup for 140 some odd days. So as we think about things, we've got 4 outfielders who are definitely going to be back. We've got 5 infielders who almost certainly are going to be back. The questions are who ends up as a 5th outfielder, who ends up as a 6th infielder, and what do we do at the catcher position? Possible that some of the answers to those questions are on the team right now. but it's also possible that the free agent or trade market may end up being our source to the answers to those questions next year. But in terms of where we spend the limited funds that we think we have, I think deciding which pitchers we may want to bring back is probably the biggest lever. About $45 million for extensions right now, so certainly not in a great situation financially. We'll have the opportunity to lower scouting and player development budgets next year, which could free up a little bit of additional money for us. We do have the $20 million that we committed to Chris Kennedy a few months ago before he suffered a season-ending injury that's going to keep him out all of next year on the books. So that limits our financial flexibility a bit, but we've got the options to keep anybody that we have talked about that is a potential free agent, but we don't have the option to keep all of the potential free agents. And the New York Mets are your fictional baseball World Series champions here in 2043. Took out the Boston Red Sox in 6 games. So the Mets, who were a wild card team when the playoffs got underway, although they were the National League East winner, made a really strong run throughout the playoffs. Never faced an elimination. I guess they did face an elimination game in the. No, they didn't face an elimination game because they took out the Pirates in 2, took out the Cubs in 4, took out the Padres in 6, and also took out the Red Sox in 6. So congratulations to the Mets on their World Series championship. One last thing for us to look at, some of the top prospects in our organization. Minor league system ranks 19th out of 32 as we sit here at the end of 2043. We've tended to be more middle of the pack the last few years. 3 top 100 prospects. Matthew Vance, our second-round pick out of Cal a year ago, split the year between AA Hartford and AAA Albuquerque, combined for an 11-6 record between the two levels with a WAR of just over 2. Looks like he can be a useful back of the rotation major league pitcher. The stuff never going to be all that impressive. Only 22 years old, so have a bit more hope that he could reach his full potential than some of the older players that we've been talking about. Don't ever see him being an ace, but think he could become a useful player for us in the not too distant future, but which, given some of the struggles we've had bringing on college players in the draft, is not a huge loss. Ernesto Menjivar, we've got big expectations for him. He was a scouting discovery 6 years ago, the number 74 prospect in baseball. Unfortunately, the 21-year-old is fragile physically, and he missed all of this past season with an injury. The good news is that now that he's healthy, we can probably get him into the development lab. Looking at his ceiling, according to our scout, think he could be a very useful pitcher for us in the future. Hopefully we can get him back on track after he unfortunately missed all of 2043. And the final top 100 prospect in the Rockies organization, also a pitcher, C.J. Coons. He was our second-round pick back in 2041, high school lefty. Has rapidly moved up through the organization. 21-year-old started this year in high A ball, where he was 11-4 with a 2.61 ERA. Promoted him towards the end of the year to AA Hartford, where he went 2-1 with a 4.76 ERA, striking out more than a batter per inning, combined for a 4 WAR between those two levels. Still think that he has got a pretty interesting ceiling. Great stamina, great at holding on runners. Really looking forward to seeing what hopefully Mr. Coons can become in the not-too-distant future. So we've got, in the case of Menjivar and Coons, pitchers that we think could be front end of the rotation guys, although perhaps not aces. And then in Vance, another guy who could help us in the rotation, likely sooner than either of the others. Three other players rank in the top 200. We've already talked about Tomas Pena. He is likely to be in the mix to be a fourth or fifth starter for us a year from now. Nils Mensch, the IAFA signing out of Germany from back in 2036. 24-year-old hit 266 with 10 homers and 57 ribbies in AAA Albuquerque. Was a below league average offensive player once again this year and below replacement level. Very versatile defensively and solid defensively in the infield, although we've been playing him in the outfield most recently just to make him as useful a switch-hitting utility man as possible. The defense in the infield is certainly solid. The concern with Mensch at almost 25 years old is whether his bat is actually going to develop. Still think that there's a lot of home run power lurking in there, but we haven't really seen it in the minor leagues. And again, it's a guy who's going to be 25 years old when next season is getting underway. If it hasn't developed now, is it going to develop? But with the fact that we have at least one spot potentially available in the infield next year, switch hitter like Mensch, who's good defensively, could certainly be in the mix. Maybe we can get lucky in the development lab with him this offseason and see some progression finally towards his ceiling in some of those hitting categories. And then the most interesting hitting prospect in our organization is the first baseman Luis Vera, who's also a potential corner outfielder, known as the Secretary of Defense, even though his defense either in the infield or the outfield is not outstanding. He was our IAFA signing just a year and a half ago. The 19-year-old, another guy who is just acing every level we throw at him. He hit .528, which I won't get on my high horse about how ridiculous some of the numbers that people are putting up in the low minors are since a patch from OOTP several months ago. But 25 homers and 131 ribbies and 176 ACL at-bats before we promoted him at 19 to A-ball, where he proceeded to hit .410 with 19 homers and 80 ribbies and 205 at-bats. So in less than 100 games this year as a 19-year-old in rookie ball and A-ball, Luis Vera had 44 home runs and 211 runs batted in while hitting about .460 and putting up a WAR of close to 11. He will likely be starting in the Northwest League next year, but probably won't be there for long. As a 20-year-old, I think it is very conceivable that we'll be seeing what he can do in the Eastern League at some point next year, particularly with the expectation that he'll continue to grow and mature during this offseason. Not inconceivable that he could be in AAA as a 20-year-old next season. Two other prospects we want to talk about. Fifth-round pick from a year ago, Jim Johnson out of Missouri. Made his major league debut late in the year for us. Didn't allow a run over 12 2/3 innings. Only 4 hits and 3 walks allowed while striking out 17. So he was ridiculously effective for us. Think he can be a good righty major league reliever. The 23-year-old looks like he's ready for the majors. That slider-sinker combination is incredible. Certainly could be an asset for our bullpen if we potentially need to move on from the likes of McKinney and or Reyes this offseason. So looking forward to what Brody Johnson can do for us going forward. And a guy who unfortunately will not be doing anything for us at the major league level going forward unless there's some massive rash of horrible injuries is our first-round pick from 3 years ago, Trent Sluggo Nath. Picked him out of Southern New Hampshire University. Still love the personality, still love the glove. The issue is he is just not good at hitting a baseball. We pretty much gave up on him this year, had some other options in AAA that were better than him. He got only 16 at-bats, didn't start a single game for us. Did hit .250 with a home run and 4 ribbies in those 16 at-bats. But looking at his batting ratings and looking at the batting average is well below the Mendoza line that he put up in more substantive playing time in AAA in 2041 and 2042. Sluggo's career is not going to be all that successful, unfortunately. And if you're wondering why we didn't give Nath time behind the plate with those good defensive ratings and his atrocious offense wasn't convincing enough to you, the guy who was our everyday catcher in AAA, John Corley, switch hitter who was an 11th round pick in that same draft, very good defensively, also a good influence in the clubhouse, and although we don't think his bat is going to be good, it's less awful, significantly less awful than Nath. He hit .295 for us with 15 homers and 73 ribbies as our regular catcher in AAA, and he was very good with a .355 average in the small sample size of 31 at-bats as a major leaguer. Certainly in the mix to be a backup for us next year. The switch hitter, like his defense, don't love the bat, but again, we don't hate his bat as much as we hate Nath's. To be fair, though, his 500 BABIP indicates that he's certainly unlikely to perform in the majors as he did in his introduction to the show this past October. And we've made it to the beginning of the off season. A few housekeeping issues. Development facilities are open, so we'll spend some time thinking about that before we move forward. Continue to aggressively scout the international amateur free agent class. Leo Martinez option year decision. As we've talked about, we are going to execute that option. Josh Joss option year decision. As we've talked about, we're going to execute that option. Bob Russell at $18 million is something we're going to want to think about. Mike Castro for $8 million, certainly going to execute that option. New budget, $300 million, so that's the biggest we've ever been. I believe we were at $292 last year, so that'll give us a little bit more financial flexibility with some of these big decisions we have with the free agents or potential free agents to be who are getting expensive. Review of season goals. We did deliver the playoff appearance. We haven't extended Carlos Bear Barrel Davila, as we talked about. As great a personality he is, he's very financially oriented, and we're, I think, better off for the long term just letting him play through the arbitration years before trying to extend him at fair market value. Haven't found a gold glove winner, haven't improved the farm system, wants another championship by 2047. It's been 3 years since we've won, and he's very frustrated with that, even though we have delivered 7 titles over the less than 20 years of this playthrough. He's good with our performance and goals. Overall mood with our performance is happy. Wants us to win a championship, sign Carlos Davila, make some money, get to a top 6 minor league system, improve our record in extra inning games, and build another dynasty in the next 5 seasons. Longtime manager Toby Staveland has retired, so that will be a big replacement that we need to make. We also lost a pitching coach and a manager in our DSL team. Contract was extended for 4 years at $2.2 million a year, so the off season is about to get underway. Just a programming note on what to expect, as those of you who have been following me closely know, have some more travel across the country scheduled up for the second half of this upcoming week, so I'm going to be offline completely as far as posting videos and or playing OOTP, which most frustratingly to me means I'm going to miss the first full day of OOTP on Friday the 13th. I won't be getting back until very, very late that night or possibly early Saturday morning, so going to completely miss that first day of OOTP, but look forward into jumping into OOTP 27 over the weekend. But to keep this series moving forward to some type of clean and appropriate conclusion, which likely involves both Martinez and Kevin Roberts Jr. reaching the end of their careers, Things are going to be a little different. I'm going to sim the entire off season in the next episode, which I hope to post Tuesday morning for viewers. I'll take a look at the IAFA options and let you know what we decide to do, but not going to be a situation where you're going to be able to influence my decision making as members of the Worldwide Scouting Department. Unfortunately, normally we do the off seasons over multiple episodes, but we're going to go into somewhat less depth this time and get that episode posted by Tuesday. And then the plan is basically overnight Wednesday morning, before I have to head out for a extremely early flight, post an episode covering the first half of the 2044 season, hopefully up to the draft, where I will be able to then take a pause and hopefully turn things over to the Worldwide Scouting Department early Wednesday morning, with several days for those of you who are interested to opine on our potential options in the 2044 draft. And obviously, when we get back over the weekend, we will continue moving things along. So thanks, as always, for watching. One last thing to look at briefly before we finish up the episode. Not that you're going to be able to strongly influence my decision making on this, since we're still several weeks away from any of this potentially becoming reality. But looking at the potential pitchers who are out there on the free agent market, our reliever, Jason McKinney, the best reliever out there, Jesse Hoffmeister, along with Victor Garcia, the premier starting pitchers out there. Our other reliever, Melvin Reyes, also a very prominent potential free agent. The reliever, Eric Gordon, I believe he used to be a starter a few years ago. Maybe I'm making that up. No, he's definitely been a starter for some good teams over the course of his career. And another starting pitcher, Cesar Luna. Potentially some of the better free agent options out there, with the fact that we know McKinney, Hoffmeister, and Reyes very well, and they are arguably three of the top four free agent pitchers available. I tend to think there would be a reunion with one or two, probably not three of them, and possibly zero of them if we're going to do anything in the pitching free agent market material this year. I think rather go with the guys that we know who have performed with us than take risks on a Garcia or Gordon or a Luna, who also tend to be a little older. Our old buddy Justin Gibson and our old buddy Jason House also among the list of better potential free agents who could be on the market as far as pitchers. Position player-wise, potential free agents led by the second baseman Willis Mendoza. Not great defensively, but a pretty interesting hitter. Led the American League in runs this past year, put up a 4.1 WAR. Looks like he's pretty much a 4.5 WAR kind of player. Joel Barada, Omar Gallo, Mario Sanchez, and Brian Wade, some of the other more interesting options potentially out there on the market, along with Joe McKenzie, and then our guys, Antonio Vaca, Alex Arellano. Arellano, we talked about, might end up being the best option for us at catcher. I don't know that I want to be spending $11 million a year for 6 years on him. Could look to do something shorter. Jordan Fernandez, 29-year-old out of the Las Vegas organization. Really good defensively. Nothing special as a hitter, and some negative personality traits for him. He's been a 1.5 kind of WAR player, below average offensively the last couple years. So not necessarily expecting that we're going to find the answer at catcher on the free agent market. And as we've looked at over these past several off seasons, not necessarily great options on the trade market either, but maybe someone has emerged. Maybe someone is more willing to give up a big-time catcher, but that's going to be a big question and concern of ours as we start preparing for this upcoming off season. So feel like we're still in a very good position. Don't love that we haven't won a title since 2040, and don't love that we are likely headed for a lot of turnover this offseason, particularly off of our great pitching staff. You can see right here, allegedly we have the best starting pitcher in baseball and the best relief pitching situation in baseball, and both of those guys are free agents. Not real to think that we'd be able to bring them both back, but we could probably bring one of them back if we wanted to. So some big decisions for our Rockies as this offseason gets underway. As I noted, if everything goes according to plan, I'm going to sim through the entire offseason in our next episode. And until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.